We got a packed show for you guys. Be ready. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 82nd episode of the second most downloaded non-game day Nuggets show on this podcast feed. That's right, eat your heart out, fan vote, and online with D-Line. Welcome to the DNVR Nuggets' Serbian Corner. My name is Miroslav, and 82 episodes is a big milestone to me. An NBA team plays 82 regular season games, but it took me 2.5 seasons to get there because I take more games off than Ben Simmons and Kawhi Leonard combined. This week, we've seen 3 Nuggets games, the home rematch against the Blazers, and you know how much I appreciate each one of the 17 games the Nuggets play against the Blazers per year, and the road games against the Lakers and the Kings. Versus Portland, it was reasonable to expect a low-effort game from the champs since Jeremy Grant and Malcolm Brogdon decided to get a free day and presumably see the mountains. The starters looked like shit, and the bench kept the team attached, but Coach Malone didn't want to risk anything. He only played 9 guys, but kept it to 8 in the second half, when we once again saw Aaron Gordon as a backup 5. And that lineup, together with the starters, broke the game open and secured the win. It was a great comeback game from Christian Braun, another solid performance for Peyton Watson. Reggie made baskets when needed, and Jamal was excellent leading the staggered lineup. It was just a single-double night from Jokic, but win is what counts. The trade deadline after that brought us a bunch of more or less marginal moves. The Knicks were the most active, and the 3 teams that had the most confidence in their squads did nothing. I'm, of course, talking about the Nuggets, the Lakers, and the Warriors. Zing. Actually, that's not true for the Nuggets. They did make one move. They got some cash from the Clippers to give them the phone number of Ishmael Kamagate. So the dream of Wemby stopper in Denver is now officially over. Much more about the trade deadline in a few minutes. On Thursday, the Nuggets visited the Lakers. Kobe's statue was revealed next to the arena, so naturally it was the champions' responsibility to ruin their night. The Lakers were pretty chippy and had the game tied 2 minutes before the end of the fourth quarter, but then Jamal, Nikola, and MPJ took over, and those were the least clutch minutes in history. Lastly, the good guys traveled to the capital of California to combat the Kings on the second night of a back-to-back. Sega Baba, baby. MPJ missed his first game this season, joining KCP in the street clothes. The Nuggets had an excellent first quarter, had a 9 points lead 5 seconds before the end of it, conceded a 3, Peyton lost the ball on the inbound, and Michael Jordan, disguised as Malik Monk, drained a last-second 3. Another 3 in the first possession of the second quarter, and that was all the Nuggets were prepared to do in Sacramento. Also, this kept the perfect streak of games lost right before the Serbian Corner after winning all the other games of the week. Again, thank you, Nuggets, for keeping both of my feet on the ground. All right, I can tell you're already sick of me yapping solo, so let's bring in some help. And we have a packed house today. First, a guy who has been a certified buckets since '88, the biggest MPJ advocate I know, and a prolific user of football analogies while talking about basketball, calling from the banks of the Mississippi River in New Orleans, Louisiana. It's Pistol Pete Martin. What up, Pete?
What's up, Miroslav? Happy Mardi Gras season. Hope you're enjoying the basketball season as well.
Are you outdoors in your t-shirt?
Yes, I am. It's a beautiful 73 degrees in the world today.
That's a great look for you. That's a great look. Okay, next, a debutant on the show, one of my favorite Nuggets Twitter's accounts, a Nuggets fan always ready to talk actual hoops. From Denver, Colorado, it's Will Jones. Welcome to the show, Will.
Hello, thank you for having me. Excited to finally be on the Serbian Corner.
So you are not outside in your t-shirt then?
No, it's way too snowy in Denver. I got to be inside right now.
It's so funny. We have such different climates around the globe on this panel, but not too much about that. Let's now get in another MPJ advocate. He is my favorite Nuggets storyteller who should write a lot more than he does. An advanced user of fancy words, the English probably adopted from other languages. He is a former host of podcasts called How to Train Your Dragon and Full Court Press, and now one of the essential fellas in the Nuggets verse, calling from Denver via New Jersey and Los Angeles. It's Brendan B-Dog Vogt. Welcome back to the show, B-Dog.
What's up, fellas? Will, nice to meet you. Peter, nice to see you. Miroslav, this show might end in you getting like a Serbian late night show. Your opening monologues are getting pretty good, man. You're getting pretty good. Jimmy Kimmel's sweating a little bit. That's all. I don't know, man. I think there's a future.
I don't have a lot to offer, so I really do my best to do my.
No, they're getting good. They're getting good. I used to think they were boring, but now they're pretty good.
Yeah, thank you for being honest. Okay. Last but not least, my former co-host of this very podcast, a doctor of science with a sweet shooting stroke from Lincoln, Nebraska. It's Voja Medić.
Hey,
Šta ima, Vojo?
everybody. It's really good. It's been a while. I'm rusty, but I'm wearing the MPJ shirt because I'm like on the MPJ train. Peter knows my affliction towards MPJ from before, but now he flipped me over in the Discord over the years and online. So let's go MPJ.
Serbia's not as stubborn as we all thought, right?
Yep.
Hey,
Well,
guys,
We can
Voya,
change.
Voya, do you have the wire? Is that the wire
Yeah,
playing in the background
it's in
there?
the back. I forgot to turn it off.
Yes.
A man of culture. Okay.
So, Pete, you mentioned that Serbs are not as stubborn about MPJ as you thought. Well, I don't think you're talking to the right guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
We're
like
kind
you
of
should-
dragging it to the other end.
You should move to like Nuggets Facebook if you want to see the real stuff.
Oh God.
So, okay. First of all, let's talk a bit about the Lakers and the Kings games. I don't want to talk about the Portland game because I have no idea what happened there. It was so long ago. If I didn't have any notes, I would just blank out. So, versus the Lakers, Jamal was at least a top 15 guy in Nuggets' 7th win in a row. Pete, what do we do with him? Should we just stop talking about his level of play since we all seem to repeat ourselves when we talk about Jamal being great only in marquee matchups in the regular season?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not worried about him. I mean, sometimes, yeah, he doesn't have the best games, but I think we get spoiled because we get to watch Jokic every night, who pretty much never has a bad game. So I think Jamal is just like a normal, really good player in the NBA. And, guards typically just aren't going to shoot as high a percentage. So he's going to have some duds here or there, but I'm not worried about him.
Will, how do you feel about Jamal? Do you see anything different from him this season comparing to the seasons before?
I don't know that I see anything different. I mean, other than the fact that he seemingly always tries to play himself into shape every year. And we've been talking about him getting, hitting his like peak performance right at the perfect time. And that seems to be a consistent thing. But with his injuries, it's hard to know if he's going to continue that or if he's ever going to come into the season in top shape. But with the Lakers, I mean, yeah, he plays good when the lights are bright, but the Lakers are also a very good matchup for him. They have no answer for him at all on the perimeter. Like Max Christie is not good enough. D'Lo is not good enough. So we were just running around screens easy. And I mean, Jamal is going to do what he does and hit those shots and keep frustrating the Lakers fans. So I love it.
They have Spencer Dinwiddie now. Come on, their defense is going to be so much more stout, right?
Yes, totally.
Well, how did you feel about Jamal's game against the Lakers?
It's the best. I learned over the years just to like let it go with him. I can't get annoyed from like these ups and downs. I Will said it, like my always thought with him is that he's not in shape. Like if he was always in shape like he was in the bubble, like that break between, and then like he would have been the All NBA, not just All Star. I do love him irritating Lakers fans, especially with those games, because it's really cute because you can see they're not really watching a lot of other stuff. That they thought Taurean Prince was going to guard him well, when the only game against the Wolves last year in the playoffs was when Taurean Prince started, and Jamal just went off and got hot, and that was that game 2 in Denver. And Finch went back to Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and Jamal went back to like quote unquote earth in that series. But as the other stuff with him is at least the floors aren't as drastically bad as they were, like that, and also his like I think his swing up, like his ceiling is much higher than it was. So his good games are really like really really good now. It's not like 23-13, like it's actually like 30 points and then 10 assists now. Like we're consistently seeing more of his playmaking that he picked up in the playoffs a lot more after that in the middle of that Phoenix series. So I think that's like key point. I mean, we just expect it. It's just one of those things we got to accept that he's just gonna be up and down all the time. So it is what it is.
Brendan, I know you talk about Jamal 5 times a week,
Mhm.
and it's getting hard to find new sentences about him. But he was dancing against Lakers.
Oh, he was. Adam and I did our, we do those Bet365 top fives, and we had top 5 teams you expect Jamal Murray to play well against. And the Lakers were in our top 3. And so like from that, it sounds like a bit, right? But I think it's an actual real thing with Jamal and a real perspective we have as Nuggets fans. There are some games he's always going to perform in. Some games you're not so sure about. As far as accepting it, like you guys have articulated, it's just what you're accepting. I think it's going to be the thing that keeps the Nuggets from ever winning 65 games.
10 games in a row and all that. Yeah.
10 games in a row. It will keep him from being an all-star. It just will. There are too many good guards. But at the end of the day, if he's going to be who he's been when it matters, would you trade the guy? No. So it's almost a moot point. But I do understand that he has the second most responsibility on the team, does make a lot of money. And so there's a contained criticism that's valid. If as a fan, you're going, I wish it was more consistent. I wish he was in better shape. I hear you. But at the end of the day, I think we know who he is. And I think it's a starting 5 and a top 2 that every Nuggets fan would roll with. And so that's just the deal. The one thing about Jamal I'm curious about, fellas, he's shooting 41% from 3 right now, which is on track to be slightly a career high, slight dip in volume from the last 2 seasons, like 0.6 attempts. But I think Jamal looks better as a 3-point shooter than ever. And I wonder if that's something he can lean into to raise his regular season floor, because I think he can take and make more threes than he does.
Yeah, he did try, what was it, 15 threes several nights ago.
Well, yeah, that wasn't great. But generally speaking, I like I like the way when he and Jokic are running 2-man game, and if even for a second it just means Murray's wide open from 3, take the shot. And I think he's doing that right now, and I hope he leans into it.
So, Voja, the Lakers are not very good, but they are good enough to win against good teams at home when their motivation is high, and definitely it was high a couple of nights ago. This time around, the Nuggets had the lead from wire to wire, but the Els still found a way to get to a tie game 2 minutes before the end. What happened then?
Well, then went on the Kobe run, 8-0 run at the end. That hurt them. I'm pretty sure. I mean, that 3 Jamal hit, and then the floater and that was just a backbreaker because they were up. That block that Jackson Hayes had against Watson, then Reeves hit that 3. You think that building was going to explode. Like they were ready for that win, especially against the Nuggets. And then just like 8-0 run just like that, and MPJ hits that 3, and you're like, and that's what I love when he hits those, because like, hey, we got a Jamal 5-0 run. Like, okay, it's not. And now like MPJ hits that swish, like you can hear it on the TV, like how hard that like ball went through the net, and you're like, oh, what do you do? Like it's just, the whole arena just went quiet. It was beautiful.
Just like the playoffs, right? Just like how
yeah.
all those games went. It was close until
Yep.
Porter,
It
until the
wasn't.
Nuggets' best players decided it wasn't. Yeah.
Yep.
I believe it was actually a 10-0 run because it ended on a MPJ alley-oop.
That was awkward
after
too, man.
Jamas.
Not to like put bad juju out into that. I didn't like that. It didn't look great.
Yeah.
Peter, did you mind the salt on the wound at the end of the game?
No, of course not. I mean, the more, angst and pity you can get from Laker fans, the better. But I was just going to say in regards to Jamal, the one thing I love about him so much is he's got to be one of the most confident players in the league. Even so many guys, if they're having a bad game, they check out. And I'm just not worried about him. Like, he could be having a bad game for 3 quarters, and you still trust him to make the right plays in the fourth. And oftentimes he still comes up big in the fourth. And, I don't know if you guys saw this, but there's been this funny thing going around on social media calling Jamal Murray a good teams merchant. I actually think there's a little bit of truth to it because, like you said, he goes on a run at the end. It's almost like he needs the big moment to lock in and be like, oh, this is fun. This is like what it's all about. But it's like some guys just can't get up for like Tuesday night against Charlotte. I'm not saying that's necessarily him, but there has been a pattern.
Yep.
Will, do you think that crazy run, I believe it was like only 50 seconds of gameplay, 10-0 run. Like, do you think this is repeatable against other opponents in the playoffs as well?
Well, if it's taking place in clutch time, since the Nuggets are amazing in clutch time, we're #1 net rating. So I always feel confident when it's getting close that we're going to pull it out because we could just flip that switch. And I mean, I do think some of this is matchup dependent. I mean, like Jamal was hunting Taurean Prince, and so against tougher teams in the playoffs, I don't know that we're going to go on 10-0 runs that quickly. It's probably not going to happen. But with the Lakers, it is because they don't have anything to stop Jamal
or the Wolves.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. Plus, it's just. Yeah, the West is tough. So
the thing is, that's just it's funny because like last year against the Wolves, that stupid game they lost in the overtime, but like they got to overtime by getting on a 12-0 run in a minute.
That's true. That is true.
They have it. Will, let me ask you one more thing. So the Nuggets started Justin Holiday at the 2 in that game with KCP being sidelined, but the closing lineup for the first time had Peyton Watson at the 2. So it was a huge closing lineup. Do you think we saw something special in those final minutes of the game, or was it just, accidental because of the roster situation?
I think, Peyton Watson's used to playing the 2 like throughout his life. And so I'm not surprised that Malone is willing to play him at the position. I think the fact that he closed in a game that was a game where everyone really wanted to win it. I mean, I think we can argue over whether Jokic cares about the Lakers matchup or not. I think he was kind of nonchalant about it, but I think everyone wanted to win that game. And the fact that Peyton was in there and looked like he belonged and that Malone trusted him in those minutes is pretty significant because we only have 29 games left going into the playoffs. So for Peyton to be there, and even against the Kings last night, I mean, he made some mistakes, but him getting those minutes, he's making mistakes, but he's making good plays too. It's only a good sign.
Mm-hmm. Pete, tell me that obviously the spacing is not as good with Peyton at the 2, but do you think the defensive prowess is something that completely can justify playing him at the 2, even in the playoffs, in the clutch?
If everybody's healthy, I don't see it. But it is a nice tool to go to if there's some guy that's just going off. I'm thinking last year, Devin Booker went crazy on us in the second round. I wonder if Peyton's good enough defensively to where he could bother somebody like that. Maybe if we play the Clippers, maybe he would make sense against the Paul George or something like that. So I'm really trust him on the defensive end. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how much Malone trusts him. He seems like he already trusts him, but for end of games, I mean, probably only if there's an injury or a foul out.
Yeah, we'll come back to Peyton because I think it's an interesting story in the second segment. But before that, I just want one more thing to ask Brendan. Let me throw you a softball here.
Okay.
Even though Mike had a great game against Lakers, like what 28 points on great efficiency. How is it possible that Mike has the most beautiful shooting form in the world when he hits those contested shots, and also have the most disgusting misses when he is wide open and has too much time to think about his shot?
That's a great question, Miroslav. It is a very great question. I don't know if I have the answer to that. I think Porter might just be such a hooper sometimes. And in joining Denver's system, there's been a lot of thinking. He's just been asked to think a lot about virtually every step he takes. And I think that can lead to some indecision, which can lead to some confidence issues. But it's kind of like with Jokic with his threes. I don't know if Porter doesn't have any time to think. The muscle memory, the talent, like that thing's going in. And so I do think sometimes as he's tried to become a complete player within the 4 or 5 things he's really allowed to do in this offense, you can almost see the gears turning of like, do I pump fake this and drive? Do I just let it fly? And so I think there's a touch of indecision there. But I also think it's kind of coming back. And I think a lot of the Porter season can come down to entering the season with a high ankle sprain. He is back up to 40% after last night. And so sometimes with a guy like that too, expectations are really the explanation for a dynamic that feels worse than it is.
Yeah.
Well, you are a shooter. Do you have anything to add?
Well, I was gonna say what was gonna pick back on what Vogt said about overthinking, because they have to basically deconstruct him as a player and his tendencies to build him back up.
Right.
Because that was that. I mean, they're still doing the jokes. Like, I feel like a lot of narratives around the Nuggets are like a year or two old, like about everything. You know, Jokic is still, maybe the best passing big, and all that kind of stuff. With Porter is like, oh, he never passes. He shoots whenever like he catches the ball, and it's like, if you watch, it's not really true. For that was true maybe like a couple of years ago, but like around when Jamal got hurt, and he was basically just like, okay, you go back to what you did in high school, college, and that's I think what was happening. Some of these open shots, when they're too open, that's that thinking of like, oh, should I maybe drive on this? Like, because I'm this open? And that Lakers shot at the end, and that in the playoffs is, okay, this is a shot I'm like 100% taking. Like, there was the play was built around the pick and roll, and if they overhelp what they did, I'm just supposed to shoot. So there's no thinking, just catch it and go. And you can see even like a little bit of like how the ball pops from his hand in those situations, and in situations when he's like, maybe I shouldn't shoot this, maybe, and that indecision I think can affect it. Is like, which is, again, it's kind of one of those like we tend to look at a lot of the times of like, oh, they're paid that much, they're professional basketball players, like that stuff shouldn't be there because we're just trying to play the video game from the couch. Like, oh, why is he not making an open shot when he's supposed to be an elite shooter? But a lot of these like psychological things I think still occur. And again, the high ankle sprain with his like high release also can affect it too. Like, he has to jump off of that foot. That might help, that might hinder him. And then now he's back to like getting healthy. And it's I mean, again, like with him, you see it yesterday, and some of these things with spacing. That's why I love the Nuggets and watch the Nuggets, because they're really such an interesting ecosystem. And you pull a guy out, like one person out, and it's not the KCP is a first team all defense. Everyone want to call him. Like, if you take him out, it's not that everyone else sucks that he's so good. It's just that fits so well in the 5-man lineups that like it disbalances the spacing on the floor on offense and on defense as well. And so putting Peyton in the 2 also like affects how other people play defense against the Nuggets. So just like overall, that's why I enjoy like still watching the Nuggets. And as far as Peyton on the 2, I mean, 6'7" from guard up. Like from the shooting guard up is like an insane lineup for defense. I don't know.
Yeah,
that would be like a cool thing to see.
That sounds like a 2009 team Serbia. That was the size of that team. Yeah. Okay, we went a bit long on this first segment, but I did it on purpose because I want to make a short second segment when we talk about the Sacramento game. Don't go anywhere. Okay, let's get the Sacramento game out of the way. Voja, I've seen your tweet saying this was the definition of a schedule loss.
Yeah.
Please expand on it.
I mean, it's again back to back, and it's not only a back to back; it was a back to back away. So like they had to go from LA, pack up, go to the airport or whatever they're doing to Sacramento. Like I don't know if they're taking a bus. I assume not. But you arrive like middle of the night. You're supposed to sleep, rest, and then get into your cycle. I think that's everyone. That's not just like a Nuggets thing. Like that's like a schedule loss thing for everyone. And then add on top of the fact that it's Lakers and Kobe night, kind of added a little bit of more like emotional oomph in that game than when they won that. It kind of maybe like drained him. Then they arrested a couple of guys, and it was just like I think it was just like a schedule loss. They didn't want to treat it that way. They still played it, which was cool, but overall, I think it was just they kind of ran out of gas.
Yeah, Will, are these blowout losses in the regular season annoying to you?
I mean, they're definitely annoying since I want the Nuggets to win every game. But I don't think it's like out of character, even with last season, like the amount of 20-point losses that we were having. And I always say in the regular season, the Nuggets are trading in these amazing wins. We're winning them in the clutch with some 20-point bad loss to some team. And they're just not taking it as seriously, unfortunately. But on top of that, on top of the letdown from the Lakers game, on top of the back-to-back, the Kings were banging us around. Like Jokic was getting fouled. They were playing aggressive. They were running off double ball screens like all night, and Sabonis was setting screens. Like it was a physical game to play on a back-to-back. So it just got out of hand really quickly with what they were doing with screening and getting open shots, and us not covering it properly. Even Christian Brown wasn't switching like with Jamal, a little bit out of sync. So things just got out of hand so fast, especially with shooting in the NBA, and the Kings like having the best shooting night of the whole season so far. So yeah, it's pretty much what I chalk it up to.
So Pete, what is easier to digest, a 30-point loss you stop watching at the end of the third quarter, or a tough loss by 2 points in the last seconds?
Oh, definitely the 30-point loss is easier because you don't rethink the game about like, oh, if we would have just made this play, we would have won. Like, no, you got run out of the gym. I mean, I'm going to make a poor analogy real quick. So back-to-backs in the NBA are kind of like, if you're excited on a Friday night to go out with your friends, and then you go out and you party real hard, you hit a bunch of different clubs and you have an epic night, and then everybody feels like they won. And then the next day, you're hungover and you're kind of like dragging. And then one of your friends hits you up who you haven't heard from in a while. And they're like, hey, I'm in town. You want to go out? And it's like, your body's telling you no, but you really don't want to let them down. So you go out anyway.
It's a great analogy, actually.
On Saturday, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to make it work. And then you're just dragging all night. You can't keep up. They're like, what's wrong, man? You got no energy. And that's just like how back-to-backs go in the NBA, in my opinion. I put zero stock in them. If you win them, it's great. It's a bonus, but you don't have to do it in the playoffs. So I just forget about them and move on.
Pete, it's more than an analogy. It might literally be what's happening on the back-to-backs as well. So yeah. I think you're onto something.
So, B-Dog, would you rest MPJ in the remaining 2 games before the All-Star weekend?
I don't know if I would rest him both. First of all, I don't know entirely if that was rest. I mean, he was on the injury report. And he hasn't missed a game all year. And Jamal and Yoke were playing. Like, they probably could have just listed it as rest, right? Or I mean, soreness. They got pretty specific on the injury report. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how that develops.
Well, after the Philly, they don't want to get fined now with the magnifying glass on them.
You're starting to understand why hockey just says lower body injury. Stop asking. You know what I mean? You're like, but I don't know if I'd rest him heading into the break. I just want the break to serve as the rest, a week off for him to not necessarily be, playing defense and crashing for boards. And obviously he's going to still be shooting in a gym somewhere. That's what Mike does, but take it easy, right? Because I do think he gave a lot to this team. And I think it's a very admirable goal to want to play as much as he has. Is it the wisest course, though, in terms of getting the best out of Mike and making sure you get the best out of him at the end of the year? I think I've hit the point where, I'd like to see him get a little rest, and hopefully the break serves as that.
Pete, if there's one storyline that stands out the most this season, it's the rise of Peyton Watson. Do you think the hype might be a bit out of hand? I mean, he's probably the best guy off the bench this season, which was unexpected, but also not a super high bar.
Well, I guess it all depends on your expectations, because I think a lot of people expected a big jump from Christian Brown this year, and we haven't really seen it. Peyton didn't really play last year. So to me, it's kind of like he's had a pretty solid progression from going from not playing to being like, good every other game. So I'm happy with what I've seen, but I don't expect him to be a superstar or anything. I mean, he might be, but I've talked about it before. It all just comes down to opportunity. And I think he's doing a really smart thing he's just trying to do what the coaches tell him and play his role and be as good as he can in that. And if he does that really well consistently, maybe they'll give him more touches, but the Nuggets, core is kind of already set. So I know my friend Ray has talked about him like taking over for Gordon one day, but that's a long ways away. He's got a long ways to go as a player still.
Voja, where do you see Peyton sliding in at the moment?
Well, where he is right now, I mean, at the bench. But the thing is that's a double-edged sword with, we mentioned Christian Brown, is like, that's what you kind of get when you pick some of these guys from college that have been in college for that long. He's like, you pick him because he knows what he's doing and what he did in the playoffs. The other end of that is he is probably not going to have an uptick in every sense of the production like Peyton Watson, because Peyton Watson came from very talented, not much of basically why they call that like a raw talent. And with Christian Brown, he's already kind of polished. And I didn't expect personally from him too much of this season. I just expected what I saw basically this year. Maybe he had some injuries that defensively he's had to he can't do as he did last year right during the regular season. With Watson, it's like, if he's what he is and like a little bit more, gets more mature like mentally over the years or over like this year and the next year, that's perfect, honestly, for this squad. That's your Bruce Brown type. And then the good thing again with the starting lineup and with MPJ being what he is they don't have a problem of sitting. So if there is a situation where MPJ, what happened this year a few times, like, okay, Watson is the defender, we need defense. We have enough offense with Jamal and Jokic pick and roll, we need defense around him. So, like, okay, Watson's going to slide in. So if he's that, like, again, like Bruce was last year, I'm fine with that because I wasn't particularly high on him. So my expectations aren't like all NBA, so.
Yeah, we're still talking about the Sacramento game. Look at these questions. I'm just trying to get away from it. So, Brendan, what do you think about KCP signing with 361?
Great sign, right?
Shoe deal together with Aaron and Nikola.
I honestly think it's a great sign. I mean, it's easy to read too much into these things, and but as far as a looming option and potential split goes on the horizon, him linking up with AG and Jokic's shoe company is a great sign, man. I don't think KCP wants to leave Denver. Business decisions will be made as they always are. But I strongly get the sense he's not quite as expressive as Aaron Gordon, and he has succeeded in other environments. But I strongly get the sense that KCP is actively grateful to be in the situation he's in. I think he gets to play to his skills set. I don't think he has to deal with the drama of maybe a LeBron-led team, and he gets to just be himself out here on and off the court. So I think this is a great sign. Obviously, it's not a confirmation of anything, but yeah, I think that tells you something about their relationships on this team, and relationships can be what keep a group together, even if business would suggest maybe there are other decisions to be made.
He's appreciating here too.
Yeah.
I have these dumb thoughts, and I have to get them out of my head. So
why not here? Why not with a microphone?
Why not in front of the whole internet? So why do we call Aaron Gordon AG and we don't call Nikola Jokic NJ? Does anybody have an idea?
Just doesn't work, bro. You know it when you hear it,
Yeah. It's clunky.
It's just the music then. Okay, that's enough for this segment. And when we come back, we're gonna talk about trades. Don't go anywhere. Okay, third segment. Let's start with an overarching impression of this trade deadline before we get into details. We've seen a total of only 3 first-round picks moved, if I'm not mistaken. Pete, this is obviously the result of the new CBA rules that will make picks more valuable than ever, especially for the contending teams not trying to fill out the roster with 10 minimum guys like some NBA teams from Arizona did. I don't want to name any names. Was Calvin Booth reading the room better than anyone else last summer when he signed 2 second rounders, 2 3+1 deals?
I mean, I wasn't a fan of it personally. I think he should have kept, tried to get one more veteran if you could, or keep the roster spot open in case you get a buyout. I mean, I don't know what the plan is on the buyout market, if there's anybody that they've got their eye on. But I just thought I didn't hate the draft picks. I just thought it was strange to give them like 4-year guaranteed contracts, because now the only way you get out of it is to like buy him out and, say you eat it. And historically, that's not really something the Nuggets do. So they're kind of stuck with 2 guys that aren't going to contribute this year. I think they think that they have enough just with the current group and are going to try to roll with that. That's what it looks like, at least.
Yeah, last year the Nuggets won a championship, and I was angry because not all 15 guys were counted on. And it's the same situation this time around. I mean, they actually have 18 guys if you count the three guys on 2-way contract. Will, did you mind that move back at the time when it happened, and did your perspective change since when you saw the results of the trade deadline?
I think I was thinking along the lines of what Pete just said, where I wasn't really sure what Calvin was thinking, but I still trust him. So I'm like willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. But with the trade deadline, what I definitely think is, since the first rounders are all monopolized at this point, and we saw a bunch of teams wanting like 2 or 3 second round picks because they're not being valued super high. So you need a high number of them. So accumulating them is not going to necessarily be a bad thing. Because we saw, like with the Sixers, they needed to flip Pat Bev just to get second round picks to get Buddy Hield. So I'm not against it. I'm almost banking on Calvin Booth pulling off a miracle with some late draft picks again, since I think we're going to be in that position going forward as we're contending.
I mean, what does he know? He brought DeAndre Jordan on a team. That was the worst move ever, right?
Pretty much. I don't know. I mean, sometimes I think he's kind of drinking his own Kool-Aid right now with that summer. And like, especially, I mean, after like I wasn't a fan of that interview either, and it's like it just sounded like that, like I'm smarter than you, so I'll show you with the deals, because Memphis didn't sign Vince Williams till middle of the season, or J.J. Jackson. Like they tested it out, and now they have really good guys like on a 3 or 4 year deals from a 2-way. So that, like, I think there's even a cap. I don't think they even could have signed him for more, even though they're like, for Memphis, they might actually be like really good rotation pieces next year. And they're young and quality guys. Like with Tyson and Jalen, is like, I don't know what the end goal is. I guess you sign him maybe for like trade chips, but like they're in the G League. They're not really gonna have much room to show anything in the regular rotation with how the Nuggets are structured. And it's just, that's like that was the weird part, is like there's that flexibility is gone, because who knows, maybe Tyson is something we can be count on, like instead of Lacko next year, but we don't know. And he doesn't know either. I mean, it's like a leap of faith of like, hey, we take care of our guys kind of thing that Conley started. So we'll see. I don't know. I mean, it is honestly like how the Nuggets are like laid out right now, like with the 8 players they have for playoffs. It's like, knock on wood, if some, hopefully no one gets hurt, because otherwise it could be like disastrous. Like you take away one piece from any, from that 8-man rotation, and it could be really bad, because who's waiting in the wings kind of is tricky there.
Yeah.
So Brendan, do you think it's possible for the Nuggets to cut somebody and acquire a roster spot to sign somebody in buyout?
I just don't
Or
know.
do you
if they're
think
gonna-
that's left?
I don't know if they're going to do it, right? I mean, like last year, there was an attempt to like, well, it's been great to have Reggie Jackson on the roster now, but the buyout didn't help much last year. The trade for Thomas Bryant didn't help a ton. So I just don't know if Calvin is keyed in on these Band-Aid fixes. And I think that's kind of the way I've come to understand his approach. Whether I agree with every decision in a vacuum or not, the two timelines thing, right, in direct juxtaposition with Golden State, the respective sets of timelines are different. Like Denver isn't. Golden State was at the fan the embers of a dynasty and let's keep it alive, right? Let's not waste Steph's end of his peak. So there's a strong argument about, does a GM prepare for the future, or does he have a responsibility to go and get Steph one more? I think Jokic is just, he's young enough for Calvin to, his decisions are about, I'm attempting to expand the runway. I don't want to get into the end of a dynasty Band-Aid fix thing. And so there's a lot to that, I think. But he's got to get the draft picks right. He's got to get the draft picks right. And so it's not a foolproof approach. I just understand it. And I will say what Voja said about the depth, I think was also true of last year, man.
It was, yeah.
I think depth is much more of a regular season asset. Honestly, I think when you get to the playoffs.
No, yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying is like that's the issue now. Is like how many, like we had last year was like 1/2 and a quarter of two. It's a Toronto game and a Memphis game that AG played on at the 5. We're halfway through the season and it's already happened like 3 or 4 times that he played on that AG had to play on at the 5 because we didn't just have anyone in the back. So like last year,
Right.
you had this roster plus Bruce and Jeff, and Vlaco was healthy. So that stretch in the middle when Zeke actually looked like, oh, he deserves an extension, and Vlaco was locking down Shea and all that stuff. That's where the Nuggets were the best because we were talking about it's the regular season asset when you have that little of depth in the 8 to 10 range of players is when they started rolling, and then they could be healthy for the playoffs completely. Now it's like you have 8 guys, and it's always the 8, and you might actually get to 7 if Christian Brown like just is somewhere else in that game. And that's what's like for me. That's what's tricky when you're having 2 guys in the G League. They're on a contract because then that depth is non-existent. So by the time you get to the playoffs, you might, and especially with how bunched up the West is, you might have to fight all the way to beginning of the playoffs to get the seeding. You couldn't take off like 2 weeks like they did last year. So that's what I'm saying. Those are the little things. So we might not see a 16-4 run in the playoffs. So we might, see a little bit, 6 losses. I don't know.
Right.
Pete,
Can I ask one more thing?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I don't remember the exact timeline of events, but I think the Vlaco injury happened after Booth signed the 2 second-round picks.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of bad luck that he couldn't foresee. And that's turning out to be, I think, a much bigger injury than gets credit for, because he was, even though he didn't play in the playoffs last year, he was good in the regular season, I thought. And it looked like he was, sort of primed to take over the Jeff Green minutes.
Yep.
And, I don't want to make too many excuses for Zeke, but I really feel like the Vlaco injury is like an injury and a half because they played together a lot. So, Vlaco's not a true 5, but together it's like enough size and enough rebounding that they kind of worked. So without having Vlaco, it's just like you can't play Zeke and DJ together, and then just Zeke at 5 is kind of small, hasn't worked. So I feel bad for Zeke because he's such a narrow skill set player that it kind of has to be perfect for him, and it just isn't this year. So I call me crazy, I still haven't completely given up on him, but it's just the Nuggets really miss Vlaco, man. I hope that they can still have enough to get it done this year.
So am I tripping, or are there better guys this year that is probably going to show on the buyout market than the previous seasons? Maybe it also has something to do with the CBA. But Spencer Dinwiddie, I was joking about him on the Lakers, but he's a good player, and he's only 30.
Not this year,
so,
though.
Yeah, he's had a bad season.
It's the Reggie thing. Like Reggie was like a sounding name last year because of the year before, But last year, Reggie was not good on the Clippers. I mean, there was a reason why they just wanted to get rid of him and get Westbrook in. And coming in, and Brendan's right. I mean, buyouts and trades in the middle of the season rarely work out to a point like the Lakers did last year, but they kind of overhauled. Like they were so in the negative that they only could go up. And Pete, you're right. I mean, my claim for Zeke is that like the Vlaco thing. It's also basically Vlaco Jeff, that combo of like switchable guys.
Yeah,
they can pass. Like Jeff is obviously not. When it was with Vlaco, it was like the best. It was the most optimized. And you're right. I think it is an injury and a half because Zeke is not a 5 and Vlaco is not a 5. But together enough with that switching, Vlaco is disciplined, a rebounder and a defender. So I think together, like, and now I mean, adding Watson and Brown to that, it would have been a really interesting second unit. They would have had a lot of transition options, and Vlaco's that connector, like the baby Jokic, basically in that lineup. So I think that is true. I mean, that's it's just it's still Vlaco. The only reason he didn't play in the playoffs because he had that good run and got hurt. So Jeff had to step in, and then it was late to like get back to Vlaco minutes because it was so close to the playoffs. So it just kind of, I mean, that's what you get. That's the 9 to 11, 8 to 11 players. This is what you got to deal with. I mean, it is what it is.
Boy, we used to disagree so much more. What happened?
I don't know, man.
Will, I'm curious what you think of this. Here is what I think is the real true trade-off of Booth kind of like banking on youth over going for vets. Peyton Watson has a lot of talent and has had some big impact off the bench the way Bruce Brown did. But Bruce Brown was also a veteran. And like the cluster fouls and turnovers we saw from Peyton last night, capability-wise, he can be that guy off the bench in the postseason. Are you going to run into some nights where you're like, oh, man, we did not get what we needed from Peyton? Because to me, that's the trade-off. Like, you have a chance to come in next year better than you would have with vets if Peyton works out. But there is a little bit of like, okay, we're asking a young guy to deliver in a vet role in the postseason.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's where it goes back to like expectations with the fans. Like, I think we haven't seen P. Watt in the playoffs yet.
Right.
I trust that he's consistently going to be a good defender. I think opposing offenses are probably going to exploit opposing defenses are going to exploit how they're guarding P. Watt since he's not going to be a huge threat, but he's still going to have plays that are like eye popping. And, but I mean, this is just the reality of where the Nuggets are. Like, we have to play him. I think like our future looks bright with him, but in terms of contending year to year, I don't know that it's going to be as reliable as having Bruce if we had him year to year.
Right.
So it's just something we're going to have to live with, but it's exciting for, it's like, I mean, Booth has spoken on this, that he wants to contend and maybe win a couple titles, spread out, but, we're not going to maybe like three-peat. So that may disappoint some fans because we want to win every year. We don't want to waste any year of Jokic, but with just how the reality is where we have to build through the draft and we're not going to be signing big free agents or making big trades every year. This is the new NBA. So
I believe it's been almost 49 minutes of this show, and I don't think we've mentioned Jokic playing at all.
Well, why would we?
Like,
that's our tradition, though. That's
who cares?
the Serbian tradition. It's just like, yeah, he's there. He's got a triple double. It's fine. Let's talk about the 11th player on the roster.
Okay, let's take a last short break, and then we'll come back with some actual trades to talk about. Don't go anywhere. Okay. Presentation time. NBA trades at the deadline. Yay. So let's start with the first one and just give me your quick hits on it. So in the first trade, we saw Minnesota getting Monte Morris. I don't care what Detroit got back. It's not the theme of this show. So, Will, do you think Monte is going to be a good fit on this team, and how much do you think he's going to play there?
I think he's going to be a good fit. I mean, he's like mini Mike Conley. So I think he is going to give them good minutes. The only thing I'm worried about with him is that he hasn't been playing much this season. So I don't know how in shape he is or not. So we'll see how that is defensively. As much as I love Monte, there's questions. But Minnesota has really good defense and are able to cover up on that. And I'm more worried about their offense. So if Monte is going to go in there and give what he gives and that we know he can give, then it's hard to argue it's not a good pickup.
Vogt, I saw some comments on some national podcasts saying that bringing in Monte instead of some more shiny point guard name at the deadline shows that Minnesota is not super serious about this season. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think that's a little silly. Who was the shiny point guard pickup?
Tyus Jones.
Tyus Jones.
Yeah, all right.
Like how much better do they think he is?
I mean,
He's
listen,
healthier, that's the only thing right now.
Those are two versions of a similar player. I think Tyus Jones is probably a better version of Monte. But you start thinking about what it takes to get him. I wasn't on the phone for what those deals looked like. And then also that Tim has a relationship with Monte. This makes a ton of sense to me. I mean, I don't think you change how you view the Wolves if you're anyone, but they needed some stability in the half court offense. They needed a backup point guard. And I think if you put Monte around winning players, he's a winning player. So I don't think they won the trade deadline with this move, but I got why Tim did it. I got why Tim did it for sure.
Voja, you are dedicated Monte guys.
They won my heart. That's what they won in the trade. First of all, they gave up nothing. That's the point. Is like they didn't really have to give up a piece that's already in their rotation to add a guy. So what happens with them is like they have a Conley, which is an adult in that lineup. He's still the most like mature player of all the Wolves. Like Edwards fine. I mean, Katz is like the 7th most mature player on that team or something. You know. So bring in Monte again. You have a little bit of like with two of them, with him and Conley, that you have like a complete, I guess, like player. You know, the point guard rotation. First, obviously, he's a really, we know the assist to turnover ratio, all that stuff. Against with Gobert, he could be a really good pick and roll partner. And again, that it's the winning player, winning culture. Like it was really like making, it's like a no-brainer trade for especially for Conley, that he loves his guys. And he saw, that's the thing is too, is like it's not that he also traded for his guy that he got. He saw what Monte was doing in those 2 years when Jamal was hurt. Like if you can win a series against Damian Lillard and you be fine, not fine on defense, but like you can win a series with Monte as your point guard in some, against like the Portland team that was fully healthy, he can be fine off the 15 minutes, 20 minutes off the bench. So I think that was like a no-brainer move for them. Again, another adult. They can split minutes with Conley. Obviously, he has to play himself into shape. That's the biggest thing with him. Like if he was Monte from 21, it would be like it'd be a great pickup for them. It's just right now he's not that. Like he's been hurt, so he's going to be able to be like 10 minutes a game probably at first, 15, and then maybe like he can get to 22 during the regular season, and then again in the playoffs you're looking at 17 minutes maybe for him, and because again Conley can get like 40 anymore too, like he had 40 minutes, so you have to like split him up between the two of them.
So Pete, strictly talking about their matchup against the Nuggets, do you think they got better with getting Monte?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, personally I hate it, now I have to root against Monte.
Yep.
He's definitely better than Shake Milton and Jordan McLaughlin, so it makes them better. And like Voja said, another adult, he just makes the right play over and over again, and that's honestly a lot of what that team needs. They didn't necessarily need more firepower, and as we've seen with Monte, like he's pretty good at playing on or off ball, and the Timberwolves are so big. If you have a lineup with him and Ant in the backcourt, like you can get by with that defensively. Just stick Monte on the worst other guard, and then Monte could space in the corner if they want Ant running more stuff. I think what's interesting about this deal that we can't completely overlook is a lot has been made about how expensive the Timberwolves are going to be next year. If they decide not to make any big trades, if they just can't afford to keep Conley, I could see them bringing back Monte just to sort of be the point guard as like a placeholder until they figure out. Yeah, exactly. Until they figure out like what they're going to do there. Because I think the hope is like they kind of want Ant to like eventually be good enough to run the offense like most of the time. And then you can just kind of fill in with more length and defense around him and really build a championship team. But, you know, any team would love to have a smart point guard like Monte Morris, because it's kind of a dying breed in the NBA, honestly.
Okay, let's move on to the next trade because I don't want to keep people for 90 minutes together with us today. So the other team that's on the top of the Western Conference, Oklahoma City Thunder, got Gordon Hayward and had to give up my guys Davis Bertans and Vasilije Micic, but more on them on some other time. Will, is Oklahoma better with Gordon Hayward now? Or is it just strictly depending on his health?
Well, I mean, health is the biggest question with him for sure. But if he is healthy, I mean, he's a smart player. He makes really good reads. He can distribute. He's just like a savvy veteran, and this is a team of young guys. So adding that is going to be pretty valuable. They have an MVP level player, which we know is important if you want to make a deep run. I was definitely more skeptical of OKC with the lack of experience before this trade. So I mean, I think it's a good trade for him. I hate to say it, but yeah, if he's not healthy, then that's a risk they were willing to take, I guess.
Brendan, specifically against the Nuggets, do you think Gordon brings a lot on the table?
I mean, I just think he would help them in any matchup. I think it's just scoring off the bench and a guy who can make a couple of big plays and has, what has he played in, like 30 playoff games? He's not LeBron James, but he's been there.
Monte.
Yeah, so it's not, he has been in those games, but it's not exactly. I don't know if they could have fixed their inexperience at the trade deadline. Like, their best three players are inexperienced and they shouldn't trade them. So it's just, that's something they're just going to have to go through. Excuse me. I think getting a big, which they got Bismack Biyombo. Sorry, fellas, not to be rude, not too moved. I think getting a big would have maybe changed that matchup more. But I will say the Thunder were my winners at the trade deadline. Just because I think I don't know if they made the single best move, but they're the best team that got better for sure in the West. My winners out West. The Knicks are my winners out East. And so it's Thunder. Everyone was like, do they need to make a big move? Do they need to stay pat? And they were like, how about we just add a talented player for very cheap, and we'll make a run at it and see what happens. And I thought that was wise.
So, Voja, are you more afraid of the OKC now, or are they in the same tier for you before the playoffs?
I mean, I think it's the same tier. I don't really trust Gordon Hayward doing anything. The other thing is with the tricky thing with that inexperience argument is also getting the right experienced player in that situation. And I wonder, obviously don't know, we don't know Gordon Hayward personally and all that, but like, I wonder how he's going to go into that locker room. Like, cause is he going to think himself like he was brought in as a savior, like to get him over the hump? Or is it going to be explained to him like, hey, you're just to patch any holes in matchups we need? Because again, you're not going to play over Jalen Williams or, get more shots than Chet Holmgren, that, which again, he might expect, he might not. So like, that's the one question, like from that perspective, playing wise, like, the just X's and O's and on the court, like how you would think, like they obviously got better. Like, it didn't really lose much. I mean, Vasa was like maybe on the verge of maybe breaking through to some of the experience, getting experience in the backup role. But what I said for Micic in the beginning of the season is like, they have Cason Wallace and he plays defense, and what Vasa offers, they really have a lot of it in Giddey. And so there was really kind of a redundant piece there, which they turned into something they might need with Gordon Hayward. So definitely a good move, and I agree with Brendan. They got better. The West team, they got better at the deadline, like from what they were before.
Pete, Gordon Hayward is an expiring contract, so he's gonna want to play in OKC. Do you see it becoming a problem if he just doesn't play as much as he wants?
I would be surprised if they traded for him to not play him. I mean, he'll probably come off the bench, but I gotta think that they'll find minutes for him.
Well, yeah, they'll slot him probably in the Vasa had how many minutes? They'll slot him in there, probably reduce some of the. Try to reduce maybe some of the main guys so they don't like wear and tear him. And also, like as far as the contract, Miro, like Brendan knows who Gordon Hayward's agent is. He's gonna be fine. Mark's gonna handle another 20 million somewhere.
He's like, hey fellas, you thought he was done? Playoff run on a contender, 14 a game off the bench. Let's talk.
I need to check if he's also the agent for Doc Rivers, because man, that guy has a good agent as well.
If Giddey is struggling, I could see them, benching Giddey down the stretch and playing Hayward in the crunch time lineup.
Yeah,
I mean, you can't leave Gordon open. That's the good things. Like with Giddey, if he's not making shots, because that's where, like, if you're playing Denver, for example, in a playoff series, you could see like, oh, you put Jokic on Giddey, and so like he can't shoot, so maybe we'll have him roaming, and then Giddey has a burden of actually getting involved in plays and not just sitting in the corner. With Gordon Hayward, if you have him sitting in the corner, you can't sag off of him as much as you would with Giddey. So completely,
yeah, for sure.
Okay, let's move to the next couple of trades, both by Dallas Mavericks. So they got PJ Washington from Charlotte, and they also got Daniel Gafford from Washington. Will, do you think these signings are gonna make Mavericks considerably better for the playoffs?
I think they definitely got better, but these aren't like moves that are going to make you a contender all of a sudden. I mean, it addresses a need, but they're in the 8th seed. So they're looking at a really tough first round unless they start going on a run. But I mean, they definitely address important weaknesses in the front court. And PJ, though, he's kind of, I mean, he's a little bit unknown, I think, among most fans, but his shooting has kind of been going down a bit, but they're going to be relying on him with, rebounding, defense, those types of things. And I'm just going to have to see it, I think. But good moves on the basketball court. I don't know how good it is down the line, building with Luka and giving away all these first-round picks. They don't have many options at this point. So there's interesting questions with the Mavericks going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Brendan, okay, so PJ Washington is a good player, but Daniel Gafford, is he going to be better for them than Derek Lively?
Well, he's not going to be better than Derek Lively. I mean, I do think it helps to add a big that can roll and score a little bit, and that's something Luka likes and has. But I also think he's a guy, like, we're spoiled, so maybe this is the wrong prism to view everything through, but Gafford guarding Jokic, thanks for the 15 points, it's not like that. So it's not, so that, yeah, I don't know about the Daniel Gafford part. PJ Washington's good. It is interesting how we started talking about how very few first round picks moved, and you go, man, the first round pick move for PJ Washington. Is that a lot? You know what I think it is? It's a maybe like we got to try to save our jobs move. Because you can't miss. You're gonna miss the. You can't go into the play-in tournament again with Luka. I mean, you got to make some kind of a run. So it might be guys who might not be worried about how it looks in 3 or 4 years.
Well, also because isn't it Luka like 26 might be his summer to leave? So like 27 pick, like you gotta save your job basically.
Gotta try to convince him.
Quick live update on that. Gafford in his fashion, 17 minutes, 19 points, 9 rebounds, 7 of 11 from the field with Luka.
Yeah.
So and PJ Washington, he's like 10 points off the bench, 20 minutes, like 104 for 3, which is again kind of on par. But Gafford, the joke wasn't the joke always with him. He's just out of shape all the time. That he can't go more than 15. Which again, if he does, and Lively gets your load of 25 to 30 minutes, if you get Gafford to like go off the bench and just roll with Luka for like 15 minutes and score 12 points, like that's maybe all you need kind of from him.
So Pete, Dallas, especially their fans, hated Richaun Holmes and Grant Williams. Is this addition by subtraction for them?
Yeah, I was going to say I'm actually much higher on PJ Washington than all you guys. I think he's a really good player, and it's really hard to judge anybody who's been on the Charlotte Hornets. It's just that team has just been such a disaster, and it's like I don't think he's amazing or anything, But Grant Williams was absolutely terrible for them this year. So if he just comes in and is who he was, it's a significant upgrade just because the last guy was so terrible. So it's another guy that I think, you know, the other thing you can't underestimate is like the situation, right? He's going from a team that's going nowhere to a team that has a chance. So he's going to be re-energized. And he's going to have so much more space to operate with Luka. You know, Luka he finds so many guys easy buckets. And then, you know, they've got Kyrie, they got the playmaking. Hardaway's having a good year. I think Dallas got significantly better. You know, them and OKC were the only teams that really improved. But, you know, I hate to say it, but I think Dallas is live now to win a round or two.
Okay, last slide for today. It's a big three-way trade. So Phoenix Suns got Royce O'Neal and big body David Roddy. And I don't care. Brooklyn got Keita Bates-Diop, yeah, and Memphis got Yuta Watanabe and Chimezie Metu.
Well, I thought Metu and Watanabe are going to win the title.
Yeah, legends.
What a boring trade.
I mean,
look at how boring this trade
look at the names, though. Like, all the Suns players that left. Remember how many times we've seen those, like, the tweets on just like the depth, what signings in the offseason, like, that's why you get the Beal.
Yeah,
like, you can sign these off the waiver, and it's like, no, they're there for a reason.
Yeah, the only guy that's still left on the Suns is Bol out of the you know elite five they got for minimum deals last summer. But is Royce O'Neal somebody that's gonna help significantly this Phoenix roster? Let's start with Will.
I mean, I think he can play decent defense. I mean, he's not going to be a huge needle mover for them. He's like a better Josh Okogie. So even then, it's like now with these Suns, you know, propping up these dudes, getting Royce O'Neal's even like kind of an indictment on Okogie a little bit. But I don't know. The Suns are weird. I just think it's going to be better for basketball if they don't win. That's pretty much
one of the worst owners. I'm sorry, one of the worst owners we've had. Like, he just showed up, like, did all this. This is literally like he's on Twitter and like, oh, Royce O'Neal, like he can. It's like, no, Royce O'Neal was done in the bubble, like that when he traveled in that clutch possession against the Nuggets. Like that was his bye to the actual minutes that he can bring to the NBA. Maybe I'm just like too harsh and arrogant from the title, but like, if Royce O'Neal is going to save the Suns season, like, I don't know. I mean, good for them, but they got bigger problems than. I mean, again, you said it. Like, what we have Josh Okogie. Like, what's a Royce O'Neal going to bring you more than Okogie would? Like, I mean, he's. I don't know. It just sounds they're just. I love that they're horrible and HPS sucks.
So Brendan, I remember the story about Utah Jazz falling apart after Royce O'Neal left their team because he's a great locker room presence.
That's right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
So maybe he will completely transform this team into
like he did in Brooklyn with KD.
Oh yeah, just bring everyone together. Nurkic comes out and says it's the best leader he's ever played for. Yeah, maybe. I don't know, man. I'm with Will. This Suns roster, in my opinion, is kind of an abomination. I think Nuggets fans secretly, if not outwardly, when the Kevin Durant trade was made, we all gave our due respect of, oh shit, that's Kevin Durant. But I think everyone kind of wanted to finish the sentence.
I was happy. I was happy.
Are we sure it's a better version than the Suns that the Nuggets couldn't compete with? And I understand that the Chris Paul was aging and all that. It's very easy hindsight move, like getting Kevin Durant. A lot of teams would do it, but
they were better before.
The roster's just the roster is like, yeah, it's like a skin mask, you know, like a serial killer, like stitched together parts. It's like gross. I hate it.
It is. It's the Buffalo Bill of the
right. I don't know, like Royce O'Neal helps in that. I think in the past, like to get defenders on the floor, they had to get straight up zeros on offense on the floor. And I guess you could argue O'Neal's not as bad in that sense, but you know, it's not moving me. It's not moving me.
Yeah, I just want to send regards to our guys at PHNX. They have a great team to cover. And
they got away from not getting Miles Bridges. That would have been a tough
that's
work
true.
around.
But shout out to my guy Espo, by the way, for
Yeah,
coming out early and because that look, you could argue on the court that was the move they needed to make, and I actually really loved that PHNX gave a hard no thanks to that ahead of time.
Yep.
Pete,
I
would
just
you,
like
That one I would have hated if they got Miles Bridges like playing wise.
Ugh.
First, we would have hated him like really nicely as a whole team, but like on the court, it would have been like, come on, like
Right.
him too.
Right.
Yeah.
I
Sorry,
just
Pete,
think this Suns era is hilarious. I mean,
It is.
it's like if you go into the kitchen and you don't know what you're doing and you want to make a smoothie, you know, and then you put like 10 ingredients in there and then it's not good. And you're like, you know what? I want to try it again. Less blueberries this time. I'll put strawberries in now. It's like the Suns just keep reshuffling the deck chairs. And it's like, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, like it's just not good. So I think it's hilarious. You know, they were telling us how good Metu was, and now they trade him for Roddy. Like, I don't even know who's a better player, but they're just like, well, it's not working, so let's try something new.
Guys, you put sawdust in there, it's not gonna work. Smoothie's not gonna be tasty.
so
Walmart protein.
before we go, who is the toughest opponent for the Nuggets in the West after the trade deadline? Like, give me just a short
Nuggets.
answer.
Clippers for me.
Clippers.
After the Nuggets.
Toughest
Clippers.
for the Nuggets or just
For
toughest team?
getting out of the West. Out from the West.
Oh yeah, I'm going Nuggets.
I'm I'm going Timberwolves if we're being like other teams, obviously. Like,
Yeah, other teams than the Nuggets. Who's
Yeah.
the toughest?
Yeah.
It's Clippers for me.
Again, Clippers. Okay.
Clippers.
Okay.
I can't
know.
do Clippers. I can't do Clippers.
I think this one's a little different just because they have a
I
point
can't.
guard.
Yeah, we heard this how many times?
Hey,
man?
let me follow
This
up by
time
saying
is different.
Let me follow up by saying I'm thrilled that that's the answer. You know, it's
Yeah.
not like I'm not like, oh, they got to get through the KD Warriors, but I do think it is. I think with Harden for the first time, the Clippers can get great shots as opposed to putting great shot makers in tough shot making position, and I just think that part is actually different.
Yeah, they got a point guard this time. It's just that
Well,
it's Harden.
And Kawhi's done it before. So OKC and Minnesota are still improving to me. I'm not worried about them.
But they got to stay healthy. They have plenty of questions to answer.
No, I'm on the Wolves, man. I don't know. I like what they had last year, and I didn't have Reed or McDaniels, and they got again more mature with it, and for some reason like the punching fest didn't hurt them, so they might blow. You know, they might have implode. So they have that weird like mental side of it. But with the Clippers, I don't know. I mean, I can't until I see them win. I can't even like when they're up 3-1 against the Nuggets. I still won't believe it. Like. So
I'm just glad they didn't get another guy on this deadline because supposedly they had some assets to throw away and get one
didn't,
more
though.
guy.
They
They didn't, so that's
Yeah.
that's cool. That's cool. Okay, that was fun, guys. Thank you for spending an hour plus of your Saturday with me. Do you have any closing words before we go?
I like where the Nuggets are, fellas. I really do. I know it's easy to say, but I think you look around the league and you would take this, right? If before the season I came to you and said, here's the scenario on February 10th, would you take it? I think we all would.
Yeah. I think that's a good sentiment to end this show on. And for you, my dear listener, thank you for staying with us to the very end. I hope you'll join me again next weekend on the Serbian Corner. Idemo Nuggets.
Idemo Nuggets.